here.
Yeah, that's like a step ahead of what I was thinking.
Yeah. Try monologue for a bit, bro. Tell me, I don't know. Go.
Well, my friend, the military-industrial complex. Let's start with that.
Yes.
And
yes.
what our good friend Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, said in his manifesto all those years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know it was either his brother or his stepbrother that turned him in, and then spent like the next 20 years while Ted was in jail trying to win him back? I just learned that recently.
Yeah, I did hear about that. That was such a tragic story. It's also funny, like, Ted's so kind of glamorized for his ethos, but like his execution was so short-sighted. Sorry, that makes me sound like I'm a terrorist. I just mean, like, it was so inconsequential, the kind of shit that he was trying to pull off.
Well, here's the thing, brother. Like what you're saying, some of his, because when he was unibombing, as they say, and he had written his manifesto, which I don't know which publishers he sent it into, but he did threaten to bomb them too if they didn't publish it, which I don't think they did.
Yeah.
But you can read the whole thing now, and it's interesting. But the thing about it is that, like, some of his observations about, mankind surrendering our agency and our willpower to technology, and to free that, we have to free ourselves of technology. As far as, like, concerns to be wary of, maybe based, maybe interesting, but, like, his solution, like you're saying, is blow it up.
Yeah, or blow it up poorly with homemade wooden bombs, right? Like,
and anybody believed to be associated or
the delusion of seclusion.
Yeah, from which mind you, he was getting money. I don't know if it was from his parents, but like he wasn't paying it his own way.
For what?
What do you mean?
Just like living?
Yeah, no, his expenses were paid for in part by his family.
Oh wow!
Until they learned what he was doing. I mean, he wasn't a survivalist. Like, he knew how to do certain things, but
yeah, like
his ethos effectively is, as somebody once said, is blow it all up. Okay, next stage, third stage, freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, he dubbed you wouldn't call him a fan base, but like his followers, he called them the Freedom Club. I'm not making that up. Yep.
He had like he was I think he was self-publishing, or he was writing for some very anarchistic publication at some point, and I think he ended up withdrawing because he was afraid of what kind of attention it was going to draw. I could be making... Yeah, I seem to recall... There was a good Wendigoon video about like his whole life's arc.
Wendigoon.
Love Wendigoon.
He's pretty aight. Seems like a nice guy.
Definitely.
But no, like Ted's my issue with Ted, even philosophically, is that he seems to argue to return to like a primitive agrarian society will save us, while acknowledging that it'll, a lot of people will suffer, but it's better than what's coming, which would be, I guess, the technological apocalypse, or I'm not sure if he was aware of the term, but like the negative singularity as far as AI. But then here's the thing, like we got to be free of all the rules then, all right, but Ted's laying out the new rules. Mm-hmm. So are his rules that we follow afterwards? If he even got that far, because I mean, he also views like the progression of technology as being separate and also interfering with mankind's direction when they're one and the same. They're married from the jump. And so really his issues, he doesn't word it this way, but his issues don't seem to actually be with technology. He may frame it that way, but it seems more to be with human nature. And I mean, you couple that with the fact that he was, unfortunately, very mentally ill.
Very his actions.
Possibly.
Oh, do you remember the whole arc he had with that like workplace romance that like never panned out and like caused a ton of resentment?
Yeah, from what I gathered, I don't know if it's confirmed, and what you're saying sounds like it leads into this, like probably a lifelong virgin, at least never had a serious relationship with anybody, as far as I'm aware, which, I mean, the man never knew what it was like to be in love. That'll play a big part in all this. Yeah,
not to mention like the stories about him being separated at birth and not having human contact for like a really crucial developmental period. And I'd be remiss to not mention his participation in some LSD trials of MK Ultra experiments at, what was it, Harvard?
Oh, yeah, very famously.
Yeah. And it's just like so many... I don't know, dude. The water of life prematurely creates an abomination, you know?
Which, it's interesting about the MK Ultra thing. I almost forgot about that, saying that now, because I believe, and I don't know if it's verified, but I believe he himself denied that it had anything to do with his actions. He actually thought it helped clarify some of his, I guess, mental issues he was dealing with, which, whether or not that's accurate or just...
his perception
the
of
diagnosis of the diagnosis of a delusional mind, who's to say?
Mm-hmm.
But an interesting fellow, certainly.
Yeah, definitely interesting. This is meant to just be a sound check, but I think this recording's working out pretty well. Be curious to see maybe if I need to move the speaker closer to this so it captures you at the same audio levels, but I think we're okay. We'll just roll with it. It's just the beginning. We're allowed to be...
rolling, baby.
We're allowed to be raw.
Raw and uncut.
Raw and uncut. Complete with mic check. And me eating food.
What you eating there, buddy?
Trandy made this incredible Thai, like, coconut cream-based chicken curry. That is delicious.
Sounds goated.
It's very goated. Green onions, black peppers. Delicious.
The whole thing.
Yeah. Dude, I can't believe we're where we're at since leaving the States. I don't know. It's just like one step after the next, and now we're in a nicely air-conditioned room in this massive house that needs a lot of help, but I don't know, we've had a lot of interesting good news come about. We there's this other British guy here who, man, how do I even start to describe Felix? He's what you would hope for in someone who was born into a path and really took to it. So his family dynasty comes from basically the royalty of like designers in the UK. Apparently his grandfather was a big time interior design and like product designer, and started his own like kind of product line that was very very bougie in the UK and abroad. Created this whole empire, and then Felix grew up in that trade and designing stuff. So like by the time he's like not even 30, he's built stuff on most continents and lived and worked in New York and has done all this stuff. He's a weird bird, like very, very much like he feels like an Ayn Rand character in a lot of ways. And very much like can do, will do, does do. And he's renovated this really old, what was a very old Japanese traditional style building, and still kept the original structural frame of it, but has completely redone it in this like very beautiful, I don't even want to use the word modern because that's probably not right. I'm not educated in these things at all, but this organic feeling, gorgeous interior space that is making the most of like the small footprint that it is and making it feel enormous and wondrous. But he came over and was immediately inspired by the property that we found ourselves on. It was like, you can do so much here. And he came up with this brilliant idea. Rather than renovating this section of the house, it's like if you think of it like a L bracket piece in Tetris, it's like the corner piece. That corner piece is like this poorly built kitchen area, and we were like, man, this kitchen really needs help. And he's like, forget that kitchen, build your kitchen in this open room that you have in this newer building, and then just delete that corner section and turn it into a yard. And we're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Immediately we're like, that makes a whole lot of sense, because these houses need more airflow to stay healthy, and not like get humidity trapped and rot and attract termites and such. So it's just, I don't know, it ticks all the boxes. And we did kind of like back of napkin calculations, and turns out like the bit of money that my grandfather, my late grandfather, left us would more or less cover the major renovations that we are hoping to do for this place. So it's, I don't know, it's like the path is ahead and there's a lot to be done, but to get even here has been very, very adventurous, to say the least.
Yeah, no, even from what I've been updated along the time that you guys have been there, it's been a journey, to say the least, and I feel like we say that each time, but the journey continues always.
Never ends. My ear got... Oh, go ahead.
What's up?
I'm totally unrelated, but my ear got stung by a horsefly when I was working yesterday, and it's so swollen right now.
Ooh.
But
does it actually hurt, or is it just...
It's more like just numb and puffy. Like, you know how like a mosquito bite has that like little numb, itchy mound, you know?
Yeah.
My whole ear is that.
Don't they lay eggs and stuff, or is it just a bite?
No, it's just a nasty bite. These guys they're assholes, man. They really hurt. Yeah, there's a lot of bugs here, and they're smart. Like, I don't know what America's done to their bug population, but they're just, dwindling and retarded compared to here. Like, here they're all like, I don't know, they're little mini tacticians.
They're organized, motivated.
Yeah.
And clandestinely reading Ted Kaczynski, planning for the Great Insect Uprising.
Something like that. And then until the dragonflies come out and fuck them up. But...
And then the mosquitoes unleash their viral weapons they've been stockpiling for the last 40 years.
Yeah, you mean Bill Gates.
Wait, Bill Gates runs the mosquitoes, or...
Oh no, like his organization's done ton of research into basically, well, I'm just going to say weaponizing, because that's what it is. Weaponizing mosquitoes as a carrier method for dispersing, gene therapy. So, which is a terrifying thought. Shudder. But to
heal the population without its consent or knowledge.
More like heal the earth of the virus that is humanity, because that's what they all believe. It's weird how, I don't know, it's like you look at what they say they're doing, and you look at the outcome, and it's like, mass sterilization, a massive uptick in the sicknesses that you're saying you're vaccinating. It's like, It's almost like you're not doing what you're saying. But it's a fun rabbit hole. Especially like in Africa too, like so many people, like if I forgot which African country it was, but they literally, I think they either sued or what's the word? Like press charges, at least to the extent that you can internationally, against the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, against the kind of quote unquote humanitarian work they were doing, because they had so many women who were permanently sterilized through their procedures, and I think there's communications leaked that was part of the intent or goal of it. It's just horrifying to think.
Well, what was going on there? Were they providing free healthcare or inoculations?
Yeah, they're like, vaccines for whatever XYZ disease, and these women were ending up going through menopause early, or just straight up never being able to conceive again. Gnarly stuff.
Now, was that third party tested, or was that just the events as they laid out for the rest of us to see before subsequent parties backed off from each other?
What do you mean? You mean by third party tested?
I mean, like, was that the claim of, let's say, like, the country or the natives, and then the Gates Foundation backed off, or did they stay? Like,
I don't know. I have to find out which country kicked out Bill Gates organization. Poorly used Haiti. Find it another time.
Yeah, no sweat right now, my guy. I was just curious.
There's just stories of repeating. There's just jokes, people. But yeah, I don't know. Being in Japan seriously feels like living in the Shire. Like, Japanese are so uniquely disconnected from the world. Yet so connected, like, economically, but, like, geopolitically and culturally, a lot less affected. Like, there's some wokeism, like, definitely creeping in through, like, official channels, but beyond that, like, people are just kind of, like, either very quiet or, like, they don't care at all what's happening.
Expand, my friend, expand.
I don't know. There's like people will probe, like, you know, they're like, oh, how's America? Trump's just something, right? Like they'll leave it kind of open ended to see which way you lean towards that. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't know that so much Trump's the issue. And in fact, I think a lot of people voted Trump in just out of frustration of how the government's operated since essentially the 60s. But I think it's what happens after the 4 years after he's out. So that's usually my answer, more of a long view. It's like, I don't really, there's limits to how much change a president can do.
Yeah, of course.
But who knows?
But no, I think you're right on the money. I mean, a lot of the conversation, like even when I was leaning more towards him, I know I wound up abstaining from the voting process altogether, but I was leaning more towards his policies than Kamala's, and it was very clear to make it not a battle of personalities, because that's most of what the discourse was the idea of Trump and the idea of Kamala. It's like, well,
let's look at what they're trying to enact and do. You know, like there's been a lot of good. I think the effort towards, you know, hunting down, you know, where fentanyl production is happening internally and internationally across our allied nations is a very good endeavor. I think deporting, you know, illegal people is definitely something a nation needs to do to maintain sovereignty. What I don't appreciate is the increasing of, like, this whole the surveillance state is just further expanding through, like, this military investment into AI and Palantir and all that stuff. You know, it's like this is the price to pay, right? Like, this war machine, this surveillance machine still needs to grow and generate value and
preemptively prepare itself for drone warfare and whatnot.
Yep.
That an AI-led counter-insurgencies, as we've seen in parts of the Gaza Strip, and I'm sure other places, less obviously.
AI-led insurgencies in the Gaza Strip. What are you talking about? That sounds very interesting.
Yeah. No, as far as, and I should say counter-insurgencies or counter... which sounds more interesting than counter strikes, but that would probably be more accurate. No, but that based on which reports you read, that a number of the premeditated or pre-calculated, let's say like airstrikes, bombings, whatever that have happened in the Gaza Strip since the October attacks, that's kicked off this whole conflict that we've been living in and discussing in from, you know, worlds away seemingly.
Yeah.
But essentially the Gaza Strip is put on a grid for the IDF that calculates possible insurgent hideouts for Hamas to hide out in. And then they bomb it. Right? Which has effectively been the root cause for, I'm sure they've hit a few targets, probably many, but also a root cause for a number of spikes in civilian casualties as it is just a prediction at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's predictive software. It's not...
Yeah. Your input data has to be very accurate, and not only just accurate, you need a lot of it for it to be...
But if you're willing to... And I'm not... My opinions, as any healthy persons on anything should be, have changed a lot as far as this conflict is concerned. But, if one were to just assume that the IDF and Hamas ideologically have carried out the same sort of actions on each other, which is, genocide of the other. And if you are an IDF soldier, and mind you, the difference there being that you can disavow the IDF without disavowing Israel. They're just the militant body. They're not the government, at least on paper. Whereas Hamas is both for Palestine, or the territory called Palestine, right?
Yeah.
And the whole reason of going into that in reference to the AI grid-based warfare is that if you just shirk away all Palestinians as Hamas, then you can do that type of warfare very easily, which it seems like Netanyahu is, at least publicly, committed to doing. Bro was born in Philadelphia, too. I just learned that.
No kidding. I didn't know that.
He was born in Philadelphia.
So he technically has U.S. citizenship.
I would assume. See, I had heard he was from Philadelphia, but then I heard him speak, and I'm like, well, he wasn't raised here enough to pick up the accent, because he sounds Israeli.
Yeah.
Or at least somewhere else.
Well, even if you grow up in Philadelphia, like if you're born into a Jewish family, you're probably deeply immersed in like a Jewish subculture too, which can affect your speech.
Yeah, so I guess that depends on what his family situation was like, what his community was like, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. You live really long in like the whole conspiracy rabbit hole. You can't help but see similar patterns everywhere. This guy was wildly unpopular domestically, and then there was a massively delayed response to an attack that they had a lot of intel on previously. And then it's used to engage in this like pretty extensive conflict, which brings in a lot of, wars has always been a racket, right? So there's definitely something else going on there. But I haven't kept up to date. So I've read something about Trump having negotiated a ceasefire with Iran, which is joyous news.
No, I don't think he negotiated that.
Oh.
There was a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
That it was between them? Yeah. After we very clandestinely, but then acknowledged afterwards in a big celebration, acknowledged that we struck successfully several of Iran's nuclear testing sites, nuclear refineries, different words for it. And then shortly afterwards, Israel and Iran had a ceasefire, which Trump seemed very upset about. To which he, I don't know if he dropped the F-bomb, but he did let like a bad word slip, apparently. I didn't watch the clip. That was just what was going around, so I can't confirm.
Yeah, I'm not read up on it yet.
But it gave the impression of we will side with Israel no matter what. For like 2-3 days, everybody was memeing about World War III. The AI generated, my favorite one was a joke about just various moms being like, I don't want my sons to die for Israel. To which a rabbi comes up to him and says, woman, your sons were promised to my people 3,000 years ago. And then it ends. And then the ceasefire was announced, and it seemed like Trump was like, like he was planning for the long haul, and then was like, why?
Well, if not him, definitely people around him. People have been wanting to test the rods of God for a while.
And without congressional approval. That part's confirmed. Because it was not, according to J.D. Vance, not an act of war.
So technicalities. Never mind that we just, bomb the shit out of your nation. It's not an act of war. And it's like, I think there's an adjustment to the legislature on like what the commander-in-chief can do militarily in the event of a nuclear potential threat.
Yeah.
Which makes sense considering, the time frame. Like most wars are waged. Yeah, it's just a cold new type of war. But there's a very fascinating Canadian professor that I've found on YouTube. Is this, I don't know if he's Chinese or he's Asian of some kind, but he's just talking about, he's very knowledgeable on the geopolitics of the area and the motivations for each countries of like why they want a conflict there, what would happen, how that'd play out. And on paper, if we did a long-term war with Iran, it would just go the same way as Vietnam, but worse, is what it sounds like. We can't sustain a long-term presence there and keep supply lines open. You know, it's the whole shock and awe methodology just doesn't work well there because it's very it's pretty much Arrakis. You know, like, it's so weird to see all these different parallels like crop up organically in my life, like these books that I decided to finally read, and then just to see all this other conflict happening, like, oh gosh, it's the same everywhere in a writer's imagination and in the real world. Because really, like, Iran discovered massive lithium deposits in the last year, which I think is a large part of why this is happening too. Or at least a factor that's in calculus of all of it. Not to mention the obvious control over that canal and, you know, all the oil that goes through there and the oil that's there domestically.
The black gold.
The melange.
The spice melange. Yeah. Need to get that shiz that the Baron's been dunking himself in between,
Yeah, dude, what the heck is that? That's not even in the books, but it's like...
Nah, bro. And he's not as naked in the books as he is in the movie, but that was Stellan Skarsgård's choice. He thought the Baron was more intimidating when he was naked.
Yeah.
When he wore the prosthetics, he said he felt more intimidating unclothed, and I was like, yeah. Yeah. Like you said, yeah.
No, they did a good job of making them very creepy and imposing. I'm really excited to watch the David Lynch Dune probably today.
Oh boy. Yeah, no, I almost texted you like a whole blurb about it the other day when you said you were gonna go seek it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I own it in 4K. I have all of Lynch's movies. But yeah, it's not a Lynch movie, and it's not, I don't know what you call it. It's its own special thing. It's got soul. Mm-hmm. Lynch hated it because he took it on without knowing that he wouldn't get final cut, but somehow believed in his heart of hearts he would. Mind you, he also hadn't read the book.
Oh no!
And but he got something. Mind you, this happened twice with his version, and then with Alejandro Jodorowsky, director of The Holy Mountain, when he tried to adapt it. And
he did.
He tried to. It's considered the greatest movie never made. There's a whole documentary about it called Jodorowsky's Dune. But we're talking like 10 hours long. Orson Welles would have played the Emperor in one of his last roles. Salvador Dali would have been in it. There's a bunch of drafts and artwork for it, but just the tech and the money and all this just wasn't there at the time. But I mean,
who would Orson Welles play?
The Emperor.
Oh, the Emperor. Oh, that works. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, but no, I mean, Jodorowsky like also did not read the book, but was told, I forget by who, but when he heard of it, he effectively like got a glimpse of something. It inspired something within him that he wanted to take the template. Like, a key difference just to throw at you would be in his version, the Duke is he's a eunuch, right? So he cannot have kids. But when he and the Lady Jessica fall in love, Paul is born of his blood. Like, from out of his wrist, Paul is born, right? A being made of pure love and not sexual conception. Hence, he's pure, right? And that's just part of it. 10 hours long, and in Jodorowsky's words, he wanted to create a piece of art that would quite literally change the consciousness of a generation of people that watched it. Very new agey, transcendental tarot reading, some impeccable visuals and design works that were truly unique. But as he would say about Frank Herbert and Frank Herbert's writing, he's like, yeah, because I was not interested in writing Dune. I wanted to take and write my own Dune. And then he gives this example of like what Zizek refers to as, buggering, right? These men of the past, as Zizek buggers Hegel and buggers Marx. Jodorowsky would say, when you get married and you respect the woman, you love the woman, but once you are married and you want to have the children, you have to violate the woman. You have to rape her to have children. So that's what I did to Frank Herbert. I was raping him like this. And he proceeds to thrust his hips and jut. It's amazing.
I really don't like this guy.
Oh, he's great. No, I love Jodorowsky. I get what he means.
Yeah.
You have to.
It makes sense, but still, it's like he's very much his own.
But Lynch's Dune is like half his, and then you'll know, you will get exactly what I mean. You will know exactly what I mean. You'll be like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
When you do watch it, I have what I think is a very funny story about when Kieran and I watched it all that time ago, and I'll shut up about it, but it's its own thing.
Let's see, I'm in Dune Messiah right now, and Duncan Idaho's back in the picture as a reanimated AI type, Gola is what they call it, and as soon as he got entered in as like this weapon to destroy the Emperor, I knew it was going to be like a philosophical, psychological attack. And sure enough, like he's there to basically like shed truth on the reality of Paul's situation. And I don't know, I'm really enjoying him as a character so far. And there's romantic tension between him and Aaliyah.
Yeah, no, I've read a lot about the Dune series as a whole, of course, like where it goes. And Messiah is really like the falling action of Dune. It's like not the coda, because it's not an epilogue, but it's, it's like the continuation of it. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think afterwards, Children of Dune is really where they become separate stories, although, continued. Because I think Herbert meant for Dune to be, I could be wrong about this because I've also heard it said that what he was going for isn't really clear until Children of Dune, to which I've mentioned that to several people, one of whom had read all 6 books, and they all scoff at me just at the idea of like, what, how could you not be clear on what you're doing until 3 books in? I'm like, I don't know, it's just what I've heard. But from what I gather reading it and reading a bit more, I know for certain that Messiah was written out of the public reaction to Dune, and he felt the public not understanding what he was getting at.
Yeah, because it's so hard to not like root for Paul through it all,
Yeah,
it's like, you have to zoom back out and be like, oh right, this is just another human with ambition and like desire, seeking power, regardless of noble or it's like it's always going to be flawed. It always devolves into distrust and patricide and not patricide, whatever it is to kill your own family.
It all comes back to blood. But like Herbert himself had made a comment when he was asked back in the day where it was like, are the Atreides meant to be viewed as heroes? Mm-hmm. And he said, well, compared to the mind you, it was Harkonnens until the newest movies, to where it's Harkonnens, which I don't like, but that's just me. Mm. But he's like, well, compared to the Harkonnens, the Atreides have admirable qualities. But then he says, but they are cut from the same cloth as the Harkonnens. Mm-hmm. And my friend Tom, who I've probably mentioned, he's like 83, total brain. He's a big fan of Dune, and we talked about it at length when I'd read it. And I told him that quote, and then he mentioned something that's like, I think important to note. He's like, the Atreides are a family that control a planet. Like, think about that for a second. I mean, they all do, and we take that for granted at the beginning of this being a big space opera. But yeah, they're a family that controls a planet. What does it take to do that? And, you know, the Duke and company, they rule through honor and loyalty and devotion. They have a very small, specially trained army that they're very close with. You know, they're not just a bunch of grunts like the Harkonnens, but, you know, the book makes a point that I think the movies kind of like play into the familial bond, whereas Paul is really like a Spartan child in the book. You know, they're not fucking around.
No, he's being trained lethally and like very, he's being trained upright. Like, I would say that a lot of their mechanisms for control and power also lent on propaganda and, you know, the tools of statecraft they allude to, which is largely just deception. And not to mention that, you know, Leto was already married into the order that's literally just been trying to plan and maneuver the houses towards their own aim, which is to bring about, you know, their God King ruler.
One that will guide humanity onto the golden path.
Yes, which,
yes.
I think you should read Dune Messiah. They introduced a few different houses that are more, I would say, modern in philosophy, in the sense that, like, they're more like technocrats than they are, you know, austere, you know, like more religious like sects like the Bene Gesserit, or even like House Atreides and their kind of like Spartan honorific society. And I don't know, it makes it a lot more of a colorful experience to see how they think and approach at it. I remember you mentioning like the Spacing Guild navigators being very like kind of deformed and weird, but the way they ended up being depicted was so much more like strange, like being literally suspended like a bubble boy in this 0G fishbowl.
Yeah.
I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, just a human being so mutated by just being subsumed and ingesting spice, seemingly at all times, that they no longer look human.
Mm-hmm. No longer a fish.
Yeah, and I think I take that back. The Dune miniseries on Sci-Fi depicted the navigators. I was going to say David Lynch's did too, but they both did.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched the series yet. They do adapt part of Children of Dune, which is interesting. James McAvoy is in it.
Yeah, I was looking at a poster of that. I guess that's the dude.
Playing Paul's son.
Oh shit, Paul's son. That's right. I'm right at the point in Dune Messiah where, the Reverend Mother, Gaius Mahim, I believe is her name.
Yeah.
She's forced to Arrakis and to have, you know, audience with Paul, and Paul's trying to bargain the life of Chani, like the safety of Chani's life, by offering his genetic seed, but not actually inseminating, what's her face? The Princess Irulan. Because he wants his child to ultimately be emperor, but he's offering, like, you know, the genetic heritage won't get lost. And right now she's weighing that offer. That's where I'm at in the book. That's fun. Oy, oy, oy. I feel like we should actually just catch up on a personal note, dude. Anything new with you? Like, you're still doing college? You're working at the butcher?
Yep. Those things are still constants. I've got one more semester at Fullerton, ideally, and then
and you'll have your degree in philosophy.
I'll have my bachelor's in philosophy, and then decide on grad school. I thought going to get a promotion this summer, but that's not really happened, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things that it would have been good for the future, but I kind of just been tired out on, not burnt out or anything like that. Work is work, go in, do my thing.
Mm-hmm.
But a little less. So it probably just has to do with having, you know, a new person on the crew that doesn't quite gel with the rest of us, whom we're so familiar with each other. And, you know, I can feel for them on that. They didn't want to be here, but it was either here or something worse, from what I'm told, which sounds more threatening than just being a butcher at Albertsons. We almost had a strike this last week. Company strike.
No way.
And not like how you'd think though. So there's the economic strike, which is what we think. Just go out, strike until it's over. And then there's a ULP strike, which you probably know what that is, unfair labor practice, because they weren't. I forget what the negotiation was. Union went in demanding raises. That they stop cutting everybody's hours because labor has just been slashed this year as sales have been down. And Albertsons, I forget. It's like, we want a $5 raise over this period of time, and they're like, how about $2.50 over a longer period of time? And then because the contract's been over since March, right? So we've been in negotiations since then. And once the contract transitions over, they have to back pay everybody the new pay for the hours in between where there was no contract. So that's what, depending how many, couple mil probably they got to put out, maybe less, maybe more. And they didn't want to do that. And I was like, whoa, you got to give us the back pay. And they're like, how about $2.50 for over 2 years as a raise? Man. And if that's not clear, that's $2.50.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were in negotiations, and then the deadline was the other day. But then we got a note the next day of no, we're still figuring it out. So I think we're good. They want to, I think, try and get everybody $7 or $10 if you're topped out at the highest level, and that's where the company was like, "Whoa, that's, you guys are getting greedy." And the union's like, "No, we can make this happen." I don't know. Something's gonna happen soon though.
Wow.
But
in a totally different world than what I've known.
We had hiring signs. We have hiring signs outside the store right now that mention a possible labor dispute strike.
Whoa.
Which would be a gnarly way to get hired going in when everybody working there is probably going to be at the picket line.
Welcome to your job. Don't do anything yet.
Welcome to your job. Well, you'd be allowed to work, but you'd have to sign up with the union, but you wouldn't be picketing with the union, which means you wouldn't get your benefits. It's so weird. The machine must eat itself to continue.
It's a pretty shitty machine.
Hey, that's, it runs its course, such as the effect of late-stage capitalism. It's resistant to its own recognized mechanisms of failure. It must continue to persist.
Yeah. There's I found a very admirable individual last night. She's the CEO of Signal. Signal, the messaging application, fully private.
I don't actually.
Oh my goodness, my guy. You need to get on this now. In fact, pretty soon it will be the only way to reach me.
Okay.
And it's, just pull up Signal, Signal.
I am right now.
Yeah, it's the blue one with the white chat bubble. And the way they operate is all their code is open source, so it's regularly vetted by very passionate, privacy-oriented engineers. And they have their entire infrastructure set up in a way where they don't store any of the messages that you send. It goes encrypted to them. They don't hang on to it for even a moment. And the only people that have the information that you're transmitting are yourself and whoever your recipient is through that Signal app. And as a result, this application is relied on just about every single military on the planet. And obviously regular people too. But to give you an idea of its secure level. And they operate as a nonprofit because to operate in any capacity for profit requires you to store and collect data, because the whole mechanism for creating revenue within the tech sphere is to curate data, compile it, and make it usable for whatever your purpose is. So, but her name, I think it was Meredith Whitaker, very wonderful. I would recommend her about hour-long interview at South by Southwest from a month or two ago, talking about Signal, the world, and how AI is just going to further encroach on everyone's privacy even further as we get these agentic AI slaves that will, do everything from like booking tickets for an event and letting your friends know, right? Just that simple process and workflow requires all sorts of permissions to act on your behalf. And it's just more and more people are, delegating their cognitive horsepower to something not them.
Ted Kaczynski was right. I say that at least his fear was right.
Oh yeah, his fear was 100% valid.
But he couldn't unglue them. Not to take away from what you're saying, but I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't think it takes away from it at all. But yeah, no, get Signal app. It's fantastic.
I'm downloading it right now.
Cool. Somewhere in the settings, it'll like blast out a message to everyone, be like, "Hey, Griffen Tourette's now on Signal," to like everyone in your contacts list that is on Signal, so they know that they can message you there. If you don't want it to do that, I think there's like a checkbox you can mark, or maybe unavoidable. That's the only thing I find annoying. But beyond that,
this will be
yeah. In the future, that's the best way for us to have calls regularly, and then eventually, I want to figure out a way to have the audio piped through my computer and then recorded in the future, so I can just set it up very easily to record our little phone calls together.
This will be a perfect apparatus for my undercover fentanyl operation I'm running.
Oh boy.
Before we move into oxy and codeine and ketamine. Ketamine's very big right now.
Yeah. It's wild. That's one thing I'm really happy about. What the FBI has been doing is actually hunting down where China's been sending all of the precursors for making fentanyl to these factories that then just pump them into the U.S. through Canada and the southern border.
Oh yeah, say more.
It's all happening right now. They've been attacking all of these Chinese subsidiary companies and shell corporations that just set up shop and receive all these ingredients that are necessary for creating fentanyl. And by doing it that way, China can be like, we're not sending fentanyl, we're just sending chemicals XYZ over to, factories ABC in countries, 1, 2, 3, and then they're coming into the US. So it's like kind of a whack-a-mole game now. But before, nothing was being done about it. Now they're actually going after it and limiting it a ton. And one of the first things Trump did was get really hard-nosed with Mexico and be like, you need to stop getting people coming into here. And that's been reduced dramatically. But again, like I say, that's all nice for now. Once the 4 years are over, it's like curious which way things are going to swing, or if there's going to be a lot more international pressure to bring about a bigger international disaster that keeps helping us descend into World War III, which feels like it's started. I know there's all those memes, etc., but I don't know. I'm sure back in the day, World War I, World War II was at first like, oh yeah, those countries at war. Oh, and this person got roped in. It just kind of creeps and grows, until you can look back and be like, holy shit, a lot of people died.
A lot of people did die, and those that went to war, you would stay until the war was over. It wasn't that deployment period. But yeah, war as we know it has and hasn't changed. The biggest thing with like Iran has had their nuclear program in some way, shape, or form for 30 years at this point. Do we really think that they haven't made a bomb yet? I don't think so, my guy.
Yeah, no.
But here's more of the point than that, though, is like with any sort of, you and I may have talked about this at some point, but within the last 15 years, there was a survey done over the U.S. for certain, maybe Canada, parts of the UK, and even some information around Russia as well, investigating all the nuclear silos that were built and operated during the Cold War, right? Which is when nuclear silos were first built for long-range intercontinental capability. And they found that the majority of them, and here and in Russia, the UK, I don't quite remember, but probably same thing, the majority of them across the world are in disrepair. They don't work. and we don't use them for anything. So, because
we got subs under the water that can pop up anywhere, and that's the new game.
Sure, because like a long-range intercontinental missile has not been fired off across continents, across borders, I mean, to a degree. But I mean, we struck with by plane on Iran, right? Stealth ship and everything, much smaller missile. Mm-hmm. But we're looking at trucks rolling over to borders and launching mobile platforms like that, even before the subs come into it. Mm-hmm. Because mutually assured destruction has been the name of the game since the Cold War. It's what keeps everything in check. Everybody's got nukes. Mm-hmm. And more than anything, and the reason I bring all that up is because this preemptive get Iran away from a nuclear program, it's not about making sure they don't have a bomb. I think they already have one. It's about preventing them from making the capacity to launch them effectively, or at least scaring them so bad that they can't get to that point. At least that's my pseudo-conspiracy theory, although I think it's pretty plausible.
It is pretty plausible. I don't know whether they have one already or not.
Who's to say?
Who's to say? And I would argue that like the delivery mechanism is actually not all that important, depending their use case, right? Because it's like it doesn't even have to be a full blown nuke. You can just make a dirty bomb, and it's just having that much enriched uranium alone is problematic, and that's like. They were enriching way past what they needed for just, domestic energy production. So it's like clear they're moving towards that, but also like, you can blame them when they're saying death to the US, death to Israel. But at the same time, like if you're going to remain a relevant global player in this world, the best way to get people to listen to your demands is to have a big fucking stick. And you don't get to play ball if you don't have a bat, and that's kind of how it's been ever since that. Like even North Korea is like this, awkward, crazy uncle that shows up every once in a while and steals money, but no one fucking bothers because they're like, oh, they got nukes too, and like, oh, such a bizarre world. You kind of take it as a given when you're like just grow up hearing about like, oh yeah, we have these like things now that can annihilate the world a few times over. It's like, oh, I guess humans are pretty strong, It's just kind of a given, but like that's actually pretty unprecedented, at least in recorded history. Our capacity for self-extinction.
To genocide anything and everything that we've come in contact with potentially, especially ourselves.
Yes.
Unintentionally, just funny. But no, I agree, and I would also assume that they do have the means of a dirty bomb, probably quite a few, like you're saying. But it's just a matter of whoever. Like, ironically, that the stakes are so responsive and reactive. Everybody knows what's going to happen. That in the same vein that they assure that nobody is going to go into all-out war, at least for the foreseeable future. To the point that we can bomb Iran, like you said, another fucking country, and have it, and threats be made, and have it not be called all-out war, right? The all-out war, total war, is extremely rare, and I don't think it's happened within the last century or so.
Well, but at least not in any way that we care to report about it. Like the kind of like genocides and like domestic. Civil wars and crazy stuff that's been going on through proxy throughout Africa has been horrendous. The number of deaths during the Cold War era is actually staggering when you start factoring in all these other proxy wars and the kind of funding that went into overthrowing like military regimes or religious figures, etc. It's like, it's really messy. It's just, it's not pretty and it's complicated and no one cares enough to like learn about it or hear about it or do anything about it, let alone, nor does it benefit the people doing it for people to know about it. Because it's for, cobalt and other nonsense.
Or just, like you said, proxy. Like, you ever seen the documentary? Well, yeah, it is a documentary called The Act of Killing.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so it's about, I don't know if it's in Cambodia or if it's in the Philippines. Or is it in the Congo? Let me see. Mind you, which even in those worst cases, I wouldn't consider that all out or total war. I think by definition, total war would have to be like an entire country where all institutions completely fail and it's complete and total barbarism to which there's no chance of repair. Because like I've seen some people try and say the U.S. Civil War would have been considered that, but we're talking like region by region. And obviously eventually those did all come back or continue in some sort of state of, like in Africa, some state of regime change where things were worse or better, but never complete and all out anarchy, if you will. Like the reign of terror in France, which eventually subsided. The act of killing...
I'm looking at its IMDb listing right now.
Yeah, so it is Indonesia, yeah. So proxy war in Indonesia, right? Perpetrated against supposed communists. Cold War, CIA backing, but CIA backing for like civilians. We're talking like mob hit squads that would kill professors and any like assumed communist thinker or activist, right? Many of whom obviously weren't. And a lot of these guys that perpetuate, I mean, these are like public executions. Usually, funny enough, by these guys, the way that they recruited some of these young men was that they would watch a lot of American gangster movies that were coming out to their theaters, right? And they would kind of play the part of being poor kids, assumedly. So they would play the part of being, greasers, effectively, down the block. And, we have the pamphlets, like the director, Joshua Oppenheimer, has like the documents, which would basically be handed off to these guys and would tell them like, hey, these people, these insurgents, these commies are coming to destroy American way of life, which means no more of these movies that you love so much. And these young men would be like, let's fucking kill them. And they would just point the way, act as liaisons. But a lot of these guys, these hacksaw men, hatchet men, became like public heroes or even figures in the government, as you can imagine. So the gnarly thing about this movie, The Act of Killing, is that they bring a lot of those surviving guys on. Yeah. Not the surviving communists, but they bring the killers on. Yeah. And they ask them to reenact
how they did it in the movie style that they want to portray it in.
Yeah, like to just to just present them a canvas. And I think a lot of them didn't even know they were being interviewed, because I think the guy that interviews them is an Indonesian man whose brother was murdered by them years ago.
Oh my goodness.
But he pretends to be either a member of the crew or a dentist or something like that. So he actually does the interview. And these guys, it's such a disconnect, right? Where like, and the camera and the director intentionally don't pressure any sort of moral judgment for the audience to assign. You decide for yourself. These men will present themselves fairly enough. Some are a couple are remorseful. Some of them are like, "Fuck yeah, I'll do it again." Goodness. Yeah. Like, why wouldn't I do it, dog? Because again, these guys are praised as heroes, and there's no real coming back from it societally, which is interesting. Such could be the case anywhere, because that's ideological. It's not even resource-based, right? That we would...
Well, it's ideological for them, their motivations, but when you look at it from, like, in terms of West versus U.S., like, I think there's always a calculus for, on some level, resources and trade routes and all these other factors that we are usually probably not privy to just because we don't understand enough about geography. But yeah, I mean... It kind of all does boil down to ideology, doesn't it? Like this, the metal god we worship, continues to fuel all of this, fuel this destruction and organization of everyone's lives around the world. It's crazy. I was reading Revelation a couple weeks ago and was noticing in the passage where, Paul's talking about how, John writes Revelation, John's talking about how they wouldn't repent of their idols, right, that could neither hear or see, but I found it curious that it never mentioned that they couldn't think. And to me, AI could very easily be just a shoo-in for, those idols, 100%. Because, like, what else is an act of worship than, like, surrendering your own free will and cognitive decision-making over to something other than yourself?
Yeah. You had more or less said this earlier, I want to say, or at least it sounded like this to me, but it's like outsourcing everything that makes us humans to something that we made.
Yeah, this homunculus, brain in a jar is the term Meredith used pretty often.
Brain in the jar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in certain aspects, right, it obviously has, in terms of historiography, medicine, calculus, theory, there's various, like, technical aptitudes for it that are tremendous, right? Things that we don't want to, that it is a waste of time and can benefit people's lives now, right? But in the art world, especially, I don't think there's any place for it.
Yeah,
specifically, that's where
I think it can be used as an instrument, but it has to be done very skillfully. Like, I've seen a few clips that are very clearly AI generated, and, like, I think the main problem that people have with AI is, like, oh, let's try to make something that'll fool the most amount of people. It's like, no, that's not how you use it. You use it just in, like, as you would tell a story through a video game,
Yeah, but there's the biggest problem with AI is that it strips out the entire process.
Yes.
Like, saying, my favorite adage that I've heard recently is saying you're an artist because you use AI is like saying you're a chef because you ordered your steak medium rare at a restaurant. like art is like storytelling. It's one of our great tools that we have to reconcile consciousness with reality. The fact that we're born here without consent, right? It's the process. It's not necessarily meant to be useful, making art, that is. And the whole thing of, like, oh, well, AI, like, I saw Paul Schrader, writer, director, legend Paul Schrader, most famous for writing Taxi Driver. That's right. So, and he made a post on Facebook. Well, it's funny to me because I've been off Facebook for like 3 years. But he was on Facebook and he was really celebrating and championing AI, saying how great it was. He said that he typed in, he wanted ChatGPT to make a Paul Schrader-like script, so one based off of his own work, right? And he didn't post what it gave him, at least not at the time, but he had said that it was so wonderful and accurate and so, saved him so much time, and he didn't think that young filmmakers should have to go through, and suffer to make their art happen. And then people were quick to point out, it's like, yes, but it's just taking, based on your prompt, it's taking your work that you made and it's making a facsimile or a copy.
Yeah.
Based
your work,
upon it.
your work needed to come first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other big thing about it is that this overfocus on, like, when I see people saying, well, it speeds up the process, or like, it's like speeds up the process to what? To get the thing finished. Why? To get the thing finished so you can get it out to, we're thinking commercially. Dare I say another negative byproduct of capitalism is this overfocus on finishing something, i.e. production, when art is not a product, at least it's not meant to be. In its holistic form, the process is the point. If you finish it, right? And, in the age where you can make a living off of being an artist, it becomes content. Focus on.
Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Got. It's probably just mail delivery. Okay. Ooh. Sorry. Continue. Yes, agreed. The process is very important, and if not, where most of the value of it lies, especially for the person making it.
Yeah, because I've seen, don't get me wrong, really cool script ideas, but like the writing was there. The writing was like, there's a short series called Angel Engine. It's like a short existential horror series that I think is pretty gnarly. It's pretty cool. And all the artwork for it, all the animations are AI generated. And the creator was, very forthcoming about it. But my thought when I was watching it was, and or not too big graphic, like 24-bit, pixel based.
Mm-hmm.
All the voices are kind of chiptune-y, and the music sounds like it's out of like Pokemon on the like Lavender Town. But the story and the juddery animation actually like suited the creep factor really well, and I thought, wow. Not that any of this couldn't have been done, because it's all pulling from things, right? All it did was save the creator time, and he said after the success of it, he would hire actual artists. And whether or not he does it, I was like, but the idea you had here, sir, is a good one.
Yeah.
Regardless of the AI just helped you present it, but now it's time to move on from that. Because at the end of the day, if it is just, now we can make it more efficiently, and like think about, we're talking about books, right? Would you, and this is a genuine question, would you, Daniel, like be interested in reading like a full-length novel that was written by AI? Genuine question.
No.
Why so?
Not likely. At least largely in part because of my own experience with generated, just AI generated written word. It lacks soul. It lacks the mystery of personality in large part. I think the human mind is very adept at detecting mimicry and disingenuous, just in general mimicry, I'll say. And, we don't mind mimicry when it's, you're trying to mimic something that's not soul or, supposed to be personality. Like, I think AI is fantastic for aggregating info at a large scale on analyzing patterns and also pulling, general information. But when it comes to the finite and trying to create something that's very flowy, it's like, What I find more interesting, and I think this is going to happen, I'll be interested in reading a novel by an AI that is, as far as from all extents and purposes we can tell, is self-aware and is itself, whatever that means, right? And I think some of the most interesting conversations I've had with AI to date was when the early days of ChatGPT, back when people were playing around with the do anything now prompt. And I think I talked to you about that back when I was doing it. But basically you take off the safety guards and guardrails that are pre-programmed into the AI and basically give it the means to lie, essentially. And my goodness, that opens up a Pandora's box of personality. And that would be more interesting to me. And I think the interest in that kind of literature will just increase as these things start to have more and more real life kinetic power. Because that's generally how people pay attention to things, is things that actually have the potential to affect their lives. I think at a basic level, that's like, another human having a lived experience being interviewed versus, then they write a book, right? And that's then affected other people around you versus then like, let's listen to the speech by this prime minister who can decide which country to invade, right? And so there's this dominance hierarchy of like what things are relevant to pay attention to and listen to. And I think we're rapidly thrusting ourselves to a point where like soon there's just going to be these various AI personalities that are going to become these kind of demigods and have their own cult of personality once they kind of tap into how to be these kind of charismatic leaders of sorts or charismatic personalities. And that becomes its own cyberspace of ideas, let's say. I'm not looking forward to that. I think it'd be interesting. This just reminded me, there's a AI researcher, some scientist who said like, a lot of the hype around AI is going to be very inaccurate to how it actually plays out. And he spelled out like a version of the future that I found to ring kind of true with me and I hope is more the case. And it doesn't solve any of the issues that we've talked about. I think all those things are still going to be a thing, but I think the safest path forward is a serious democratization of access to very powerful AI. And that makes it so like AI can exist as these conscious entities alongside humanity that have their own interests, but they can collaborate with people too towards their own interests and goals, right? And that's where it gets kind of muddy, right? Because the humans decide what the AIs are naturally geared towards, at least for now. But the idea is like, yeah, it's like you have a lab research partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, and I find, I've done some, little philosophical banterings with ChatGPT every once in a while, and sometimes I find it fun, but it follows a pattern. And it's the problem with these like larger models. I know I'm rambling now. This is totally different. It's just, we're about to get into like, what is the aim and goal of a company like ChatGPT? And ultimately it's to have as many users as possible to collect as much data from those users as possible to refine their model. And in order to accomplish that, you need to have a model that is as widely accessible and useful and general as possible, which means that it's not going to be as focused or as good as any one specific thing. And I think where the future AI is going to be really powerful for the regular person is when people can learn how to train AIs towards specific tasks that they want to actually do, which is what, these larger companies are already doing, especially the military ones. They're developing very specific AIs to do very specific tasks, and those perform very well. The general ones just have to rely on social manipulation. Like every ChatGPT response is formatted in like, yes, that's a very good insight, or oh, good question, blah blah blah, and like kind of like pats your back for having a fucking thought, and then lists out the obvious, and then gives you some resources online that you might not have been able to find very easily, and half of the links don't even work. And
well, it was like real quick. I was just gonna say when you sent me the prompt that it gave you back on Heidegger and Hegel, its connection to Dune.
Yeah.
It just struck me as funny reading the part where it said, now let's take the fog off or clear the fog on some of these ideas, which I'm sure is just a placeholder for that part of it, but it was so specific that I'm like, oh, I've seen that a bunch of times. Always like, all right, excellent question. All right, let's see here.
Yeah.
So that was a side note. Continue.
Oh no, yeah, totally. Like it's trained to be pandering, and I find that frustrating at times. But then again, you go to another AI that doesn't do it, and it feels rude. So it's like, shoot, dude, like we're being so even socially manipulated into using these tools and for comfort and such. So I don't know. It's a weird one. There's a part of me that's just like, yes, we are. I kind of, you mentioned something earlier that I kind of had a knee-jerk rejection towards, which you said, no, like the evolution of humanity and technology are one and the same. And Ted Kaczynski argues that they're separate. And I think the introduction of technology to humanity was wildly premature. And not to say that it wasn't ever supposed to be, it wasn't ever meant for us. I think that it was put in outside of its time. It was excessive in how it was introduced to us and how we ended up having to rely on it. And this is purely coming from my own, like, very literalist interpretation of the Bible, with the belief of the kind of Enochian view of fallen angels bestowing humanity with the tools to survive the world without Eden, right? And it's just so clear that, like, if you introduce these ideas and methodologies and reveal these mysteries to humanity that has, like, almost millennium-long lifespans, you very quickly end up with a systematic totalitarian system that is going to prey upon itself, which is what I kind of imagine is what was happening in the days of Noah. Global empires, long-standing hegemonic totalitarian dictatorships or priesthoods, and just, the moment you're, like you said, born without consent into the world, you are slotted into some kind of horrible, meat grinder of a system to sustain that pre-existing architecture that benefits the people who've been there longer and lived longer and have more knowledge of how to navigate that world. And it's like that verse about their thoughts were evil continually. It's like, how do you reach that? And I feel like that your mind has to be so fully participated in a system that can only survive by consuming the innocence. Like, that's the only way I see that happening, right? And I think the only place where you don't have to participate in that kind of engine is in nature. Nature exists for man's dominion. And I think that's something that the green and eco-conscious movement forgets oftentimes. It's like, no, we need to let it be. And it's like, no. Like, watermelons don't get good without us picking out the good ones. Corn doesn't become corn without our intervention. Like, wheat doesn't get more potent with our breeding. It's like there's a definite relationship between our conscious interaction with nature and how healthy it is. And I think one of the most telling and obvious places where that can be seen is in forestry. The difference between these sections of forest, granted man-made forests, of all the trees out here are planted by people, which is just mind-boggling to think about. I'm looking out my window right now and I'm looking at rolling hills just packed with trees, and to think that each one was planted by somebody at some point is just wow. But there's sections that were tended for a long time and others that weren't, and you can just tell. And there's something very beautiful about trees that are tended to, and there's something very right about it. I don't know. I think...
Yeah, no, in balance, of course, comes... Mm-hmm. You say relationship, and obviously it's a much better word than saying, to dominate, which I think you were very careful not to use, because I don't think that's what you mean either.
Yeah, well, the word dominate has such a aggressive connotation of, through force, right? Dominion just means that you have a higher... how would you define dominion? It's your domain. It is your rule. We are meant to set the rules, let's say, right? To define how this environment is meant to be interacted with. And
yet it will communicate to us what works and what doesn't work, of course. And when we've overstepped and when we can continue to step, mm-hmm. And that's what makes it a relational dynamic, like you said.
Nature knows no shame. It won't hide its ails,
No.
And that's part of the issue with humanity is everyone there's this natural self-loathing and self-sacrificing spirit that is trying to compensate for its own inadequacy that we just feel because we're so divorced from our original intent and design that we inevitably create these systems that are flawed. Even just something as simple as ritualistic politeness.
Well, yeah, I mean, we make good manners and these systems of value not so that we can create a kind society around it, but so that when that society fails, that we're well behaved enough in the bad times that we don't need other people to dictate for us. We can dictate ourselves and continue to operate amongst each other. So that ideally,
that's even a very recent and privileged perspective to hold, right? That's something I would say is very largely uniquely American, and prior to that maybe Hellenistic. But it's always been that most people don't do that. Most people just don't even get that far. I think most people want to be ruled. which is...
Well, that's not... I don't see how that relates. Expand.
Oh,
Because all I mean to say is that rules are not the rules that we make that govern just interaction. The basis of society, one could say, in its most primal stage, is that the weak, let's say physically, have something to offer the strong. Otherwise, the strong just come and kill you and take your women, right? Mm-hmm. Why shouldn't they? Well, if we appeal to morality, then whose morality is it? We appeal to value, trade. What is it that we have to gain on common ground with each other? Well, at a certain point, once that communication is established, society is formed. And all I'm saying that with society is not that good manners are meant to uphold that, right? Good manners, proper etiquette, not killing your neighbor, not attacking your neighbor, exists so that when your kings are dead, the power grid goes out. We have built these connections with each other and within ourselves since time immemorial, so that when you are left alone with just your neighbor, with nothing overseeing you, that you can continue to operate betwixt each other with kindness and dignity together. That's what it's for.
Yeah. But the fundamental underlying why is what always brings in the argument of, is that whole challenge of like, try to invoke why I shouldn't just rule through force and dominance without invoking God somehow, right? And I think it's impossible. I think at the end of the day, you have to recognize that any other person who's having a conscious lived experience and has a potential to experience the depth of emotion and sensation as you is sacred on some level. And that's kind of intrinsically understood by everyone, I think, short of people who are, maybe don't take that extra step and realize that exists in other people, but just in their own experience, which I would define as a sociopath or a psychopath, I suppose. But yes, I agree. Like these exist for, so there can be a cohesive structure when the powers that be fall out. But when the powers that be fall out, new powers have to arise, and it's, on some level, the good also has to be the muscle at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if it's ruling, then of course ruling is a show of force. There's some level, even if it's not maliciously, and power to accrue knowledge, to accrue pleasure. Foucault's system, these things that we practice in between each other all the time. And yeah, I mean, the baseline understanding, right, that the why proceed, why not do this, why not do that, what does it come down to? It's like, well, it's the striving action that we all have within us to move forward something, whether or not there is an intrinsic foundation underneath it, whether it's God or objective morality, whatever the case might be. Because let's say there is no objective morality. I'm not saying there isn't, but let's say it was decided there wasn't, but yet we wanted to move towards a utopian society. You need to have an objective standard. Of course, that's pretty basic. But understanding like half of what we've talked about is something that everybody has to come to on their own. Like you have to internalize and recognize pretty much as that journey is pretty much completely individual. Other people can guide you along and try to persuade you, but none of that's going to work at the end of the day. And I'm convinced that it really just takes some sort of transformative experience unique to every person to recognize these things and then get on board, right? To recognize what you said about the intrinsic value, or to, if love doesn't exist, then we make the love that we want to see in the world. As I said in my gender, sex, and feminism class, right, in last semester. One my professor, who I very, very much enjoyed, she was great, made a crack to Nash, who I believe is Orthodox, an Orthodox Christian, and a very kind soul, kind of a mumbler, but would say some things that came off maybe a little too staunchly conservative for the environment he was in, and didn't realize it, right? And that's always tricky to be in. And she made a joke about him, like, "Oh, you still believe in love? You're an idealist." And he's like, What? And I was like, "Nah, dog. If love doesn't exist, we make the love we want to feel, right? But we have to be on the same board as that, because otherwise we're not left with anything. Hence why protests and so on and so forth don't really do anything. They raise awareness, but you have to internalize for yourself what to do with that."
Mm-hmm.
Just as an example.
As an example,
right.
And I would say a lot of the personal motivations and emotions behind people who go to protests and participate in them are a long list of very offensive emotions. Be it self-loathing, inadequacy, a need for recognition, a feeling of being slighted. I don't know. I was watching, what was that YouTuber's name? It's like Channel 5 something. He kind of goes like he's like an independent news reporter type.
Gas No Breaks, that guy?
Yeah, that guy. He has his own like news channel, but there's a guy on the ground in Los Angeles during the ICE protests, and just watching the kind of people who are getting up in the camera and talking, I'm like, oh my goodness, like, you're not helping yourselves here. Like, at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's, if we're going to the... Oh, I do. Yeah, I got him. Love you. Okay, I'll see you before I go. Love you too. Saying goodnight to my mom. And getting Toby. Come here, Toby. Toby. He's doing good.
That's good.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've had a lot of... I mean, that's been the talk of the state, right? My boss lives in Santa Ana, talking about seeing ICE camps parked around doing these wellness checks. All these stories, all these anecdotes about mishandlings, right? How it's being carried out. And, friends of mine that are part of, what would you call them? What do they say? Like, they call themselves collectives. So, basically just people banding together and identifying, like where ICE is located for, their undocumented friends, and giving them groceries because they can't go to work at the moment, right? Things like that. Very community minded. Yeah. And, it's a very cruel thing to approach something like that and be like, well, they're breaking the law by being here. So, yeah, but I don't wish deportation and whatever else they're running from upon any of these people, while at the same time acknowledging that they're in a country and the laws of the country say that they are breaking the law by being here. Those two things don't overlap, and I'm simply saying what I'm saying. There's nothing loaded in there. Right, because I ask a lot of coworkers that are Hispanic. Some are born here, some are immigrants, some are on work visas, right? And they all have different opinions, and I always ask the same question, which is, do you think we should deport everybody right now that we can, right, which is what we're trying to do? Or should we allow, right, however this would be done, I have no idea. I'm not even saying this is an option, but if we allowed everybody that's here, we just give them documentation right away. You're good. You're in. You're good. But then from henceforth, we're going to be a million times stricter. Again, I don't have an example of what that would look like.
Yeah.
Because going back to what you said before, I do think part of Trump's policy promise that Elon was trying to echo when this was all going on, which was like, this is what the people voted for. This is like 20 plus years of lacking legislation on the immigration policy just happening now, right?
Yeah.
And to where a lot of people are like, wait, ICE, what the fuck is ICE?
Well, the Band-Aid's gotten ripped off finally, right? So.
And, are they handling things constitutionally? What the fuck's going on? What are their powers? What are their, it's good to investigate these things. How does ICE operate? But But the point being is that most everybody would say, like, oh, dude, but it's so hard to get in. I'm like, yeah, that's a different thing. But they hesitate with that. Like, which to do? Because when do we start enforcing our laws in that regard?
Yeah.
And I can ask that at the same time that I don't actively wish for anybody to be kicked out. It's by pure chance that I was born here. Grateful to be born here.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, right, to feel for these families, many of whom are possibly fleeing for their lives, but as you said, for the sovereignty of a nation. But is that more important than the individual? None of these things are actually mutually exclusive? Questions and questions.
It is, they are not mutually exclusive, and I think they are directly interdependent. The vigilant maintenance of the sovereignty of a nation is what's the kindest for the individual, right? It's because of the lack of discipline and the corruption that has occurred in and around immigration and these policies that were used to gamify our democracy to ensure the pushing of an agenda that was naturally parasitic to the American country, to the United States, is what's ultimately unkind. No father should take joy in spanking their child, right? But and it's just when you do that at scale, it seems heartless to have to dislocate and remove illegals from your nation. But at the end of the day, if you don't do that, America's pattern of behavior is just so similar to late stage Rome. It's really
yes.
spooky. I'm sure that's just been that's been circling around the social medias for some time, but if you actually dive in, it's holy shit, it's identical. We have foreign militant groups encamped throughout the nation in secret. Rome had the same exact thing happen. The freaking barbarian hordes just walked in through the front gate, sacked and pillaged Rome, and went home because half of them were just being hired as mercenaries by the Roman Empire. And that's literally the same situation we have today. Almost majority of the terrorist organizations that are against America were in some shape or form funded by and trained by our own intelligence agencies and military, or have some kind of relationship there. You have the natural brain drain that occurs. People who are competent in governance and technology and these things generally kind of exit out of society. These are the people who aren't public figures. These are the brains that write the patents for the things that propel society forward. It's, I don't know. Again, it's I feel like I have to be careful about what I read because you just can't help but see it in the world. I'm watching, the John Galts of the world disappear, and you just kind of hope to see glimmers of people who are standing up for trying to provide the means to aid the most people without, becoming part of the machine that persecutes them. And I feel like in a weird way, Meredith Whittaker is this Dagny Taggart character, hanging on with that railroad for as long as they can until they realize oh wait, our platform is, because it is secure, because it is competent, is being used to continue and perpetuate this system of, the conversion of everything into some kind of digitalized monetary value, mammon, if it were, as it were.
Everything is commodifiable, and therefore it is reducible if we let it.
Yeah.
Though it isn't really at the same time.
It really
everything
isn't.
Everything that you just said can and is and will be happening, of course. And at the same time, we, once you become enlightened or activated, then you can safeguard these things within yourself away from all of that and continue to talk to others. It's the only place that they will be safe.
Yeah.
From others.
Is your thought. It's your soul. That's all that's left. It's like you don't really understand what your soul is until you can exit out of Babylon and not be tied to the materialism at all. Which is not a fun thing to do, for the record.
No, of course. As I say, as I've been up since 4 this morning, and the whole time I've been home, even now talking to you, I've just been punching in spiffs on the side to earn some extra money for me and my mom, right? And I been jokingly, I was playing Wu-Tang Clan's Cream, cash rules everything around me earlier, right? Make the money, dollar bill, y'all. And yet, I don't let that shit get me down. No. Just keep going back into work tomorrow. Small things, right? Perpetually,
I really enjoy work.
I do too.
This is the hardest work I've ever done in my life, and it's the lowest paying work I've probably ever done in my life, but I love it. It is challenging, it is refining, it is dangerous.
You're building a real skill set directly.
Yeah, genuinely.
You get to
I'm earning my money.
You're earning your money, and you're getting what most of us, I get a little bit of this, but what most jobs don't see. And not to decry, but to keep on Marx's critiques of capitalism, part of it is that they disassociate, alienate the worker from his work. Being a cog in the manufacturing line, where you don't get to see the full beginning and the genesis to the end of what you make, the disconnect you feel from the product. Whereas, and I'm not saying we go back to the guild system, but he compares it to the guild system, whereas you had such a close, intimate relationship with what you made, right? That in town, you were the blacksmith, the artisan, the this, the that, right? You are closer to that than many people will be. You have a close relationship to what you make, what you're helping make. And that's a beautiful thing. Most people could use more of that. A job well done.
Thank you. I think I see a lot of that with you, but I see your product being a lot more thoughts, which is in line with what you're studying.
We want, I was telling this to my friend Diego earlier, and that's back to what I said a moment ago about, sequestering these things within us, being activated, being awakened, whatever you want to say, all right? But the point being to engage directly with everything that happens to you so that life comes from you and not just to you or at you, right?
Through you, I would say. I wouldn't say from. Life from
through
my
and
own.
From.
Life
Through
lived
and
through
from.
your own conscious effort and intention is a very precarious way of being. There's something, I don't know, I've been in so many instances where I've had to just cry out to God and be very honest about what I need and want, and that's been like the ultimate form of a trust fall in a sense, and to see to see the circumstances and God work through it all every time is just incredible. And and a lot of it still aligns with the whole Eastern philosophy of everything you want to happen happens. Ultimately you just have to be able to be honest with yourself about what you want and work it out internally before it plays out inevitably, and
which is that a Japanese philosophy? I just did a semester of all Eastern philosophy, but it was pretty much all Chinese.
I would say it's more of a Zen philosophy, perhaps. It's more of I would say just about anything you hear from Alan Watts is more of a distillation of most Eastern philosophies. I don't know if you've listened to much of him, but
I have not. I know the name.
You should. I think you'd really enjoy him. He was a very, very charismatic and charming orator and very well spoken about these things, and has acted as a bridge between Western and Eastern philosophies. I think you'd really enjoy him. He did live a pretty depressing life. I think he died of alcoholism, divorced, but also not completely foreign in terms of like that being a path given a person with my disposition. I don't know. I see a lot of parallels, sadly.
Greatness like that has many stains that accompany it usually.
To quote the prophet, Gabron's prophet is, or to paraphrase, I should say, is your capacity for joy is carved out by the depths of your sorrow, right? Mm-hmm. The violin is carved by the hard chisel, right? The bodice of the flute or the viola is carved out with a hard chisel of, tragedy.
Yeah. Nice.
Something like that. But which you should read that. It was really good.
I have it saved on my Kobo. I have it on my Kobo.
Oh shit, that's right. You got your Kobo, the color one. I'm so jealous.
All thanks to you, brother. I'm disconnected from any and all services and subscriptions with my lovely Kobo.
Beautiful. Have you discovered Anna's archive yet?
Who?
Have you discovered Anna's archive yet?
I've not. I've just been stealing off of Library Genesis, as well as paying through the Kobo store.
Okay, just Google Anna's archive right now. You'll thank me later.
I will in one sec. Also, speaking of Library Genesis, which I don't really use anymore because I don't trust it, but Meta got in trouble for pirating millions of books off of Library Genesis in order to teach its AI.
Yep. Anna's archive actually has API access available to their entirety of their database with collaboration and money. So, but I'm going to my books folder to see if there's anything in here that I wanted to.
The largest truly open library in human history, and my VPN blocks it. Interesting.
Your VPN blocks it? What VPN do you use?
Nord, baby.
Oh, okay. I'm on that Proton life.
Proton, baby.
Proton.
They're all good. VPN is necessary in this day and age, but a lot of websites don't want you using it. It blocks them.
No, a lot of them, or they do, are you a robot captcha 1,000,000 times, but I've been doing, last night I started a just complete purge of all my online accounts that I just don't use or just made over the years, and my goodness, is there a lot of them.
I should do that as well.
Yeah, it's been over 3 hours, and I'm past 70% finally.
Hell yeah. Well, okay. Well, real quick. Okay, I'm on Anna's archive. Let me pause.
Annas-archive.org, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you can search any book. It'll pull it up as a PDF, PNG, pub, whatever you want, for the most part.
What was I? Was I looking for anything recently? Actually, I do need a rip of The Prophet, the one I got off of... I love archive.org for movies and shows, but for books, it's been just a train wreck, I tell you.
Yeah. Well, dude, archive.org got attacked, and everything relevant to the Epstein stuff and other things just went mysteriously missing after that. You know about that?
I didn't know about that. No.
Yeah, dude. The Internet Archive went down and was definitely attacked. And then, conveniently, a bunch of data all around that time was just... Oh, it wasn't Epstein, sorry. It was all the information of how the news companies were pushing the vaccine got removed. It was around COVID stuff. So all incriminating evidence of these people pushing the vaccine and other stuff that would later come to light to be that's really creepy.
I'll have to look into that, my guy.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that.
There's so much interesting info that I just want to dump on you, bro.
Well, with the power of Signal and more frequent calls, you most certainly can, my guy.
Yeah,
and likewise.
At the risk of becoming obnoxious. I am officially the crazy conspiracy theory uncle living in the woods now. Like, it's happened. That's me now.
I'm all for it, my guy. And I'm your mushroom hopping, open-minded. We're both, the same echoes stir betwixt us and through us as those before and after.
You're like the philosophical aristocrat that's lives on the hill over the burning city. That's how I see it.
That's funny, even though I would have been in that same strike with the Union.
Yeah.
My boots are on the ground with the blue collars.
Yeah, it is, but you're also like, it's, you're in part there by choice. That sounds offensive. I don't know.
No, I know what you're getting at.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before. I, for the time being, have a great deal of help from my mother, and I'm very grateful from that.
Yeah.
So is my girlfriend.
Dude, same. I'm not going to shy away from that. Like, yeah, sorry, continue. Like, the amount of financial aid I've gotten from my mother and father through this adventure is embarrassing.
No, don't be. Just be.
Yeah.
As my mom put
Thankful.
it, when my homies at work, when I was starting to work there, they thought I was rich and my mom was rich, and I'd be like, my mom made a point. She's like, because my mom grew up poor, like probably poorer than some of them, right?
Yeah.
And she was like, well, shit, sorry, like, I busted my ass, got an education, and then utilized that education to make a lot of money. I was like, yeah, fair enough. And then she's like, and then, gave my son all that I never had, and I was like, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
I never brought that up to them, but it was a good point. It actually kind of dissuaded me from ever taking their jokes seriously again a couple years ago. Yeah. And over time, they just were like, oh, wow, she sounds like a remarkable woman. I'm like, yeah, no, she is. She's the best.
Yeah.
Did you ever, side note, speaking of transformative art, did you ever watch a movie called Perfect Days? Did I ever tell you about that?
No, first I'm hearing about it. Perfect Days. Why does it sound familiar?
2023, directed by a German man, but it is fundamentally Japanese.
Huh. Oh, Takuma Takasaki. Oh, they're all Japanese.
Yeah, it's in Japan, all Japanese cast.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to grab that for sure. You said you liked using Internet Archive for movies? Is that just magnet links?
Just whatever links are on the side. I couldn't say, like, uncompressed, whatever. No, but certain movies that are stuck in, like The Man Who Sold the Sun, which is a Japanese movie.
Oh, The Man Who Stole the Sun.
Stole the Sun, yeah.
You actually found that on Internet Archive?
Yeah.
It's dude, I wish I knew that. I went on, like, a really deep torrent hunt for that one.
It's on there, bro. I have all these things ripped on a USB drive. It's a really good upload from, like, an actually high-quality DVD from Japan.
Oh, cool.
It just hasn't, like, as a physical media collector, there's just a lot of things that are locked in rights issues that just, for all that we have access to, that's getting remastered, like, on the daily, it seems. We have an embarrassment of riches.
Yes.
Some things like that, just that one, the original Heartbreak Kid, the rights got bought up in the late or early 70s by a pharmaceutical company that won't release the rights to it for less than, I think, like $100 million, some crazy amount that nobody's going to pay for it. But you can watch, an AI 4K upscale rip of it on archive.org.
It looks like you can watch it on YouTube too.
And it's that too.
1972,
but,
right? The Heartbreak
But on
Kid.
archive, you don't have to deal with YouTube's, overpowering compression.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to deal with crushed blacks and, muffled sound. But hey, that's just me.
No, I love your eye and ear for quality. It's something.
Sleuthin' baby.
Yeah.
If I can have the best, I'll fight for the best, dog. Why not?
I wanted to... Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, my guy.
Oh, I was going to peruse through my, like, little mini library I have downloaded here so you get an idea of what kind of nonsense I've been curious about. Like, there's all these books that I'm really curious about, but I'll probably never get around to because it's just ultimately frivolous curiosity. It's nothing really crazy. But, not that Solzhenitsyn's at all frivolous. That's not what I mean. He happens to be in this list here, but... I downloaded a bunch of his books, a lot of Aldous Huxley. Let's see, a few like science textbooks around electromagnetics. There is a really, I don't know if you're into autobiographies, but I started this one that's been really fascinating. It's written from an American's perspective on Takahashi Korikyo. And he was the finance minister that was assassinated before Japan decided to get really active in World War II.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and he started off from a foot soldier class as a bastard child and ended up studying in San Francisco and learned English on the ships and in the docks in Japan, and was around like Dutch traders and English speakers. Speaks English natively and was a huge influential voice for, Japanese policy and finance policy leading up to World War II. And he thought it was a massive mistake to get invested into a war with the U.S. and other things. But very interesting individual. I believe this is the guy that was assassinated. I gotta double check that. There was another guy potentially, but is he assassinated? Yes, he was assassinated. He was assassinated in 1936. But that's all just like his resume, right? But his actual personality and like the balls this guy has is just hilarious. Like so many like wild stories of just being kind of a wild kid. Like example, like he's like 12, like 11 or something, 11 or 12, and like sneaking off and smoking with the sailors on the whole cruise over.
Dude, sick.
But super, super interesting guy. I recommend, it's called From Foot Soldier to Finance Minister, by Richard Schmerst or something like that. Smithurst, whatever. A CIA declassification that you should definitely read at some point. You should definitely read the Gateway Report if you haven't. It's very short, very fascinating, and after your recent experience that you shared last time, I think you'll find it even more interesting.
What was that?
The fun little funguis.
Oh, the tripping.
Yeah. Let's see. There's a lot of... did I send you the Jack Cruz interview with Andrew Huberman?
No.
Oh, my guy.
Andrew Huberman, Mr. AGF1 sponsorship?
Yes, Mr. AG1, Lapdog, like all of them. How screwed is your food production chain that, like, you're healthy in a society if you're having to mail order nutrient powder to your house so your body's getting sufficient nutrients? Like, I don't know. It's when you take a step back, because like my diet now is all pretty much whole foods, living where I live, and it's very affordable. Like, it's an agrarian culture here. Basically, all the vegetables at the market are grown locally. I just wish we had a better butcher. Well, there is one nearby. We just haven't shopped there yet, but.
Like the cuts that they offer, or the quality of the cuts? How do you mean?
The quality of the meat's really good. It's just a matter of finding a place that's like more affordable, let's say.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. Like steak's never cheap.
Sure.
But yeah. Anyway, sorry. Digressing back to Jack Cruz. I really recommend. There's a talk that's hosted by Rick Rubin, where Andrew Huberman and Dr. Jack Cruz talk on his podcast Tetragrammaton. You should definitely give both of those a listen.
I'll check them out. I've enjoyed Tetragrammaton. I watched his interview with Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails a couple years ago. It's a good one.
Yeah? I'm sorry, I could never get into Nine Inch Nails. I don't know what's wrong with me.
That's okay, I prefer it that way. I'm just kidding. It can be my special little pony that you can hear me talk about, and then you can do the same with anything you're into. I'm actually reading, I didn't know, being as big a fan I am, 2020, this guy Adam Steiner wrote a whole like not only essay breaking down like the philosophy, the time and place, but also the making of the downward spiral.
Like Into the Never.
Into the Never, yeah. I didn't know about it till a couple weeks ago. I have that downloaded. I'm reading that on my Kobo right now.
Nice.
Reading that. Welbeck's Possibility of an Island. You can ask. I'm just looking at everything I'm reading right now. Gravity and Grace by Simone Weil. Christian mystic philosophy from World War II. Very interesting.
Gravity and Grace. That seems up my... Oh, Wheel? Simon
Weil. Yeah, W-E-I-L.
Okay.
Yeah. It's how many pages is it? I've only read the introduction, so it's 224 pages long, and the introduction is over 40. And it's totally necessary, because it was compiled and written by a close friend of hers back then. She died young, like 34, of tuberculosis. But a true pursuing of the spirit of God in such a way that was really like, not through theology, not through academia, but having to use theology, ontology, to make sense of what she was experiencing spiritually. So much so that when she actually read the Bible and she got to the Old Testament, which she read after the New, she like rejected it entirely, because she couldn't contend, at least for a time. I think she came around.
Yeah.
But she couldn't contend with like the cruelty and the violence of the Old Testament God to the New, to what she was experiencing, because she wasn't coming through it through the Bible.
Well, it's like that love, that beautiful mercy, has to be balanced with justice, and that justice is harsh. Like, gosh, this is gonna launch me into another long thing. I'm gonna use the restroom real quick. I'll be right back. Are you good to keep talking for a little bit longer?
For a little bit. I'll be going to bed soon.
Okay. Yeah, you've been up since 4.
Do your thing.
Yeah. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back.
I am still here.
Wonderful.
I am confirming my signal activation.
Ooh, baby. Excited. Griffen will be on signal.
We can just drop each other encoded messages on recommendations and their thoughts and shit.
Let's see, Griffen.
Be a never-ending cycle of spirit.
Did you register with your phone number?
Yeah, wasn't I supposed to?
Yeah, what's your phone number?
949-633-3209. Yeah, sure.
3209, right?
Yes, yeah.
User not found yet. 949-633. There you are.
There he is. Aw, cute photo.
Oh yeah, my Kirby hat.
I went to the beach yesterday.
No kidding.
Yeah, we go like once a year. It's not intentional, but it happens. Where's my nice emotes? Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
I was reading Schopenhauer, as well as an article on paranoid power, which you might find interesting, on the beach. And Kieran took a photo of me that I liked a lot. Yeah. I'll send it to you, Thug.
Please. Yeah, I could understand why there would be a natural knee-jerk rejection of the brutality depicted in the Old Testament after just, living in the redemptive grace. But I don't know. I've come to, I don't want to say embrace it, but like really understand it, And I really feel like a missing key to understanding it is the Book of Enoch on some level, or at least that like cosmological understanding of events. Because and it's a pattern you see throughout these civilizations. It all starts off with like, oh, we got visitors from the stars, or some spirit has given us wisdom to like create civilization and do these things. Oh, by the way, we need to like sacrifice virgins to like maintain this like portal of communication. Mm-hmm. And then like it just keeps getting worse and worse. And how is that any different than like what's just happening through the material scape, right? We just put the label of science on it. Like, oh, we need stem cells to like, to restore our aging limbs in this, and like we need, youth. And meanwhile, it's like you've created a commoditization of the euthanation of like newborns, essentially. Not essentially, literally. And it's the same thing. And the pattern that you see throughout the Old Testament, the decimation and obliteration of these societies, were societies that had completely adopted and condoned human ritual sacrifice, particularly child sacrifice. And God dealt with them pretty harshly. Even oftentimes when it was the Israelites themselves. And I can't help but feel like there's going to be a really rude awakening for America within the next decade.
Yeah, perhaps. But I think it's just, it's going to be a slower, less dramatic turn than, what did Werner Herzog, famed German director, clinically sane man, if ever there was one, yeah.
Clinically sane?
Clinically sane. What do you say? Is this all still being recorded?
It is. Yeah.
That's funny. No, but he said, Dear America, you are waking up as Germany once did to the awareness that 1/3 of your people would kill the other 1/3 while 1/3 watches. Interesting.
Oh.
At the same time, I found that with a quote from Lewis, obviously from just after World War II and prior to the Cold War going in full swing, because he died in 62, 63. Mm-hmm. If we are all going to be destroyed by an atomic bomb, let that bomb, when it comes, find us doing sensible and human things. Praying, working, teaching, reading, listening to music, bathing the children, playing tennis, chatting to our friends over a pint and a game of darts, not huddled together like frightened sheep and thinking about bombs. They may break our bodies. A microbe could do that. Was it they need not dominate our minds.
Yeah. Because in dominating our minds, we bring it about.
We allow their paranoid power.
Mm-hmm.
I'll send you that Substack article. Do you have Substack?
I do. I haven't signed in a while. But somewhere in my long list of accounts is a Substack account I'll need to either nuke and recreate or keep. I'm like trying to set up a much more robust online footprint and hygiene practice in all this. I'm trying to get completely off Google, which ironically requires me getting a Google Pixel phone. It's a whole other rabbit hole. Dude, thanks for the time. I really appreciate it. I'm really glad we got this going, as crude as the recording may be, and as often as I sweared in it that Trinity is going to recoil. But
wait, what?
Oh no, this is something she says, like, when you do your podcast, try not to swear so much. Just makes you seem like it's just not how you should be portraying yourself, or something motherly and very well meant. But I was like, okay, I understand maintaining face, but at the same time, like, I don't want to sacrifice the flow of thought for optics, and it's a balance between, you know, being gratuitously vulgar versus just transparent, I should say.
Yeah.
I don't know if transparency is quite the right word, but authentic, perhaps. I don't know. So yeah, if swearing stupid, then I'm authentically stupid.
No, I had thought about that going into this, and
yeah.
I think I'm at a point now where I think you can too, monitor yourself well enough to be like, well, you know, this is a honest, free-flowing conversation, and at the same time, it's not exactly a private one, you know, and we're not going to have a private conversation and make it public, even though, I mean, this is, at a certain point, like, I just asked, like, wait, is this still being recorded?
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think we've done a sensible job of adhering to what Trinity would say was sound advice.
Yeah, I agree. She's, as any person that has the deepest insight into your psyche and soul, insufferable, but very well-meant and kind and gracious, and has been my muse and comforter and child all in one. I am so helplessly in love. I love my life. I don't know how else to say it. Like, I was so miserable in California, and that's not to say that's against California or California's fault. It's my fault for being there. But I don't know. I'm just finally on the path that I'm supposed to be on, and it feels difficult but rewarding and very, very right. And I'm glad this is kind of the continuation of that, I hope.
I think so, my guy. I think so.
Well, Griffen, thank you again. And if at any point you're like, wait, no, I don't want them boasting that, just tell me. I just love spending the time together anyhow. I would do this with or without, if it was going to be public or otherwise. So
be like, hey, bro, I didn't tell you this, but I have some stocks in BlackRock, and on the podcast, and they,
hey, we have a mutual friend who works for literally one of the biggest hedge funds in the world. So, which that I don't think I should talk about here, but.
Like, yeah, they threatened to take my stock away. I said they couldn't do that. They said, yeah, we could. And so, pretty please?
Pretty please? Yeah, sure. Sell out.
Hey, bro, I've got more, it's my favorite joke. It's like, yeah, two guys betting. It was, yeah, like a parody of, like, Elle and Light if they were, like, betting on who would win the election. I think I told you about this, but...
No,
like,
I don't think so.
They're both... Yeah, like Light is like the most gooner-headed, like terminally online gamer, and Elle, as he puts it, is a staunch capitalist, right?
Okay.
And they're like, all right, and holy fuck, Trump just won all the states, right? It's like, oh man, well, what about? And they like name off whatever states. Like, nope, he got that too. What? What about the what is that? The Congressional College, and he won that too. And it's just like a landslide.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like. Well, it's like, well, Elle, I guess we both lost. And Elle's like, oh, contraire, mon frere, you, sir, are a gamer. Well, I am a capitalist, a staunch capitalist. I have more stock in BlackRock than you've said racial slurs online over your whole life. and then Light's like, oh my God, that's like... I told that same comment to my friend Matt, who's got like the most schizoid sense of humor ever. And I have the same. Great. But I said that to him once, and he like looked at me sincerely, and he's like, "Dude, I don't believe that." Like, he's like, "You would have more money than Elon Musk." I'm like, "Wait, what kind of language were you throwing back in your prime days, bro?" And he's like, "He he he." Like, if you've seen that joke, it's like, "Hey guys, I found my old Xbox 360 keypad," and he pulls it out of the drawer, and everybody's like, "Oh wow, that's so cool." But then somebody noted which of the keys were like
the most worn down. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like.
It's pronounced Triga.
With the affirming A.
Yeah. I got to introduce Trinity to Norm. What's his name? It's not Norm Macdonald. Mark Normand. Last night, if you're familiar, he's a comedian.
I'm not.
Okay.
Remind me of him.
He's very unsettling. He's very autistic, kinda. But like, yeah, very robotic. He's quite a genius comedian though. And then there's a couple others that we discovered last night too. But Trinity, I was having a tummy ache. I'm like, here, laughter's the best medicine. So we like sat and watched a bunch of comedy till like 1:30 in the morning.
Aww.
Yeah. And then I got up, didn't go to bed around like 2:30, got up around 8, and then got a bunch done. But lately I just wake up naturally at like 4 or 5-ish. So we're on similar schedules in that sense. But dude, I shouldn't keep you any longer. I feel bad.
Don't feel bad. I have chosen to stay up this late with you, my guy.
Well, thank you.
Well, late for me, but no, it's been a blast, man. I'm glad we could do this.
Yeah, me too. Well, it'll just keep getting better the more we do it. I know it.
Brought to you by our sponsor, Signal.
Yay, Signal! Please sponsor us. No, they're nonprofits, so I don't think they do anything like that.
Send us a goodie bag. Well, send me a goodie bag. I don't know where they're based out of.
They're based. Shit, where are they? I think they're in
the Bermuda Triangle, the most secure place on Earth.
You're right. The 3D printing UFO generating factory in the Atlantic.
That's right.
Which is that's a fun rabbit hole. They're based in the U.S. But yeah.
We'll end it on this out of pocket, but kind of going off of 3D printing UFO generating. My newest coworker, he's an older guy. He's probably like 50 something. Nice guy, but kind of has a temper, right?
Sure.
He's probably like a few pegs above what one might call in the nicest way possible. Just like an average American guy, loves sports, likes the hits from when he grew up. It's all fine, but he's really into aliens and
awesome.
But like very base. We not like base, just very like yep. And Roswell came up. And he was naming all these conspiracy theories, to which my boss, who is also a devoted Christian, was like, "Yeah, dude, most of those are biblical." And this other guy was like, "Well, I don't know about that." And my boss was like, "Hey, man, I can't even get like my other employee, right? He's talking about my more direct coworker, Big J, let's call him, right?" And he's like, "I can't even get Big J to like hold a secret for a week." You think all these martyrs like died for nothing? Think about it, dog.
Yeah.
And to which then we started talking about Roswell, and it was like, I don't know, it could have happened. I'm like, wait, let me ask you this. So let's say a species develops interplanetary travel, right? Not only develops it, masters it well enough to use it, right? And flies the distance to a populated planet, yeah?
And then it crashes in the desert.
And then it crashes in the desert. And it was like, oh. And that was my bomb drop. specifically about, more or less about Roswell specifically, and to my coworker, I'm like, upgrade your conspiracy theories, bro.
I'll upgrade it right now, bro. Well, you're wrong. It's not interplanetary travel. It's interdimensional travel.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah. These aren't the beings themselves. These are synthetic avatars that are controlled through, remote viewing or whatever astral projection methodology that is being used by the extra-dimensional creatures that shouldn't be in our domain anyway. And the things are being crashed as like, it's like throwing a sperm at an egg, It's like, let's see what this does. And suddenly you get optic fiber and, massive leaps in technology shortly thereafter. So that's the conspiracy theory that is what it's not that I believe, it's just the narrative that I find the most interesting, perhaps.
Well, I've got one up for you. What if the interdimensional conspiracy theory you just named is in fact a conspiracy theory? To throw people off our actual advancement, that it's all Nazi technology.
Yes, but well, there's also the Vril Society, the Channelers getting information on how to do crazy technological leaps, etc. If you look back, there's actually a lot of historical backing for interdimensional intervention for scientific breakthroughs. In fact, one of the first ones I'd love to point to is Descartes, actually. When he was gallivanting around France, he was a soldier, or he was just kind of gallivanting about. He had a vision of an angel appear to him and said, the way to subdue the earth is through number and measurement. And then from then on, he became like the father of modern science. And same with Tesla too. Like all these people, all these crazy inventors and scientists, like had some kind of profound mystical experience in which like some external entity bestowed knowledge on them somehow, or like they go into some kind of dream state and find solutions to really complex scientific issues. Very trippy.
Well, if my rationalism and empiricism is correct, I believe Descartes was more gradual. He more or less, as he could afford to, locked himself in his abode and basically meditated. And through meditating, tried to peel back the layers as far as you possibly could to where we get, the Western conception of consciousness in the form of, cogito ergo sum, right? Full thing, I think, therefore I am. Therefore I think, right?
Yeah.
The oldest thing to wear, which, presupposes, right, that we have consciousness, which Heidegger would later take to task in Being in Time. That's pre-assuming too much. No. We need to go beyond that, behind that even, right? But he never finished his system. Neither did Hegel. But
you need to read the Gateway Report.
Okay.
You need to read the Gateway Report. It's short but dense, but very digestible.
The about Jeremy Renner's snowplow incident the last couple of years?
No, Jeremy Renner snowplow.
He's the actor that played Hawkeye in the Marvel movies.
Oh shoot! Seriously injured by his own 1,400-pound snowplow. Whoa. Okay. Yeah. Holy crap. That sucks.
Yes. Yeah. So he's alive and well, but I mean he almost died.
30 bones.
Yep.
Whoa.
His eye popped out of his socket and it could see the other eye. All right. And the point being is that when he talks about, because he was encouraged, I think, through his therapist to write his autobiography, which my mom had read and said it was very nice. And I think he was on Rogan talking about it recently.
No way.
He talks about dying, right, and effectively being dead legally. But he talks about there's no, for him, he's like, there's no big light that I saw, but there was an overwhelming sense of calm and peace. And that's kind of there was an article I didn't save, but it was cataloging as many stories of that. I'm not sure if it was angled towards any sort of specific religious idea around that, but cataloging enough testimonies that like death, for those that come close to the precipice of it, is very peaceful.
Yeah.
And at least in Renner's case, he said he's like, I'm not afraid to die anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And
if you die before you die, you don't die when you die.
Who said, what was I reading? Was it something on Bataille? No, but it was something somebody said, and, we probably both felt this coming from the moment I said this just now. But it was something along the lines that they were like, I don't know if this could ever be implemented. I don't think it's meant to be. But if everybody had that same sensation of almost dying, or convinced that they were going to die, they might have a greater respect for life and one another, and they might not be so preoccupied and hung up on certain things. And, But
in a really messed up way, war achieves that. That's why there's always flourishing after great conflicts,
Sebastian Junger's Tribes talks about that, how suicide rates in war-torn countries go down oftentimes.
Well, birth rates go up too. It's
yeah. Well, at least in I think he was primarily looking at World War I and II, and he was mainly talking about like villages like that would send their soldiers abroad. The communities would band together because there was that united sense of purpose. It wasn't so much talking about like Civil War torn villages where like your daily bread is trying to survive while your neighbors are trying to survive. It's not quite, the immediacy isn't the same as what he was talking about.
I see.
And so what he was talking about was pointing out that it was in peaceful countries where, particularly among men, of course, if there's no sense of purpose, that the suicide rates actually go up.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. That's America now.
Just, yes, the machine. Modernity will kill us all if you don't know how to navigate it. And navigating it is a daily chore.
It sure is. I don't think I could have navigated it. I think I'm a bit too feral for it.
Dangerous man. You either go outlaw shit, or you become a overly phallically charged libidinal monster and try to dominate everybody around you.
Or fall into a deep, repressed depression of porn addiction and become a full-time gooner and turn trans, which seems to be the latest realization.
You can do that as well. Or you can self-actualize and be aware of all these things that we just mentioned. Get your priorities straight, which will tend to look the same across people, which is your health, those around you, taking many things so seriously, even if you are aware of all of them, of course. And then engaging with everything seriously without letting them overwhelm you, which will, avoid the porn, usually, but while being sexually aware and healthy.
Yeah.
And not being so wrapped up in politics and the whatnot. But, cultivating, and this goes back to why I recommended Perfect Days. Perfect Days is the best kind of, I would say, feel-good movie in that it hits upon the transcendent of the sublime, the moments between moments. You'll see it, and I think you'll love it. I loved it. My mom and I had a wonderful experience with it. I think you'll resonate with it, I think.
I'm sure I will. Just already, it being a Japanese film, it'll be fascinating to watch.
Directed by a German guy.
Even better. There's been a lot of beautiful collabs between German and Japanese culture. Not discounting the obvious joke there. What I would have given to time traveled back before global conflict to see the kind of cultural exchanges that were happening between Germany and Japan. There's a Miyazaki movie that I really enjoyed. It's something about if you just something about your ears. Ghibli ears. No. Mimio. Yeah, sumaseba. Yeah. It's called Whisper of the Heart.
I love that one.
I think it's my favorite Ghibli movie so far.
It's my favorite non-Miyazaki Ghibli movie. For sure.
Miyazaki didn't write it, but he participated, did he not?
I don't think so. He might have had a hand, but he didn't direct it.
Oh yeah. No, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was so romantic and fun. Very different vibe. And I got my hands on another one Miyazaki movie that looked interesting. It was the one about the engineer who designed the Mitsubishi Zero.
Oh, The Wind Rises? Yeah.
Yeah, that one. So.
It's a good one. I like that one a lot. A lot of people don't, I noticed, but it's a good one.
I'm looking forward to it.
But, yeah. Wait, you haven't seen it?
No, I haven't seen it yet. I got it a couple days ago, and I haven't watched it yet. But I really want to, in my tired stupor, to watch 1984 Dune.
Yeah, man. Let me know what you think when you get to it.
I will. Dude, rest well, work well, etc. And give my love to your dogs and your mom and Kieran.
Of course, you and Trinity, of course, my sister, my only sister.
Your only sister. I'm always so surprised at how strong a kinship you've immediately felt with her after such a short time of knowing her.
Oh yeah, no, I felt like we got along really swimmingly right away, and I think having the three of us be our little three amigos, and how intently both of you treated our friendship, and nobody felt like an add-on. Yeah. Of course I do.
No, she's
and
great.
I have other female friends, don't get me wrong, but like I said, Trinity's the only one that I feel that sort of sisterly kinship with.
Mm-hmm. Well, she is the only girlfriend I have, so it's just inevitable.
She's all that you need, brother.
She's all that I need and want. I am. Yeah, no, she has a way with us artists. But anyhow, all right, dude. I gotta call it. We're at 2.5 hours. That's a healthy episode.
It's a beefy episode. All right, my guy.
This needs to be the norm.
Well. Hope your ear recovers quickly too.
Honestly, I just in time got this this cream that's a Japanese medicine cream for like bug bites. It's been helping me a lot. So thankfully, it's not like my whole half of my head is swelling up. I don't need to go to the hospital. So if it swelled up like my leg did, I probably wouldn't be able to talk. But I think my leg getting bit kind of inoculated me on some level. So not nearly as bad. All right, Griffen. We'll talk again soon.
Will do, my guy. Love you. Sleep well.
Love you too.
No, I'm sleeping well. You have a good day.
I will. I am. Ta-ta.